Welcome to the Hoja on Architecture podcast. Teaching the Designer, Chapter 10, The Designer We Are Teaching. This season is called Teaching the Designer. Throughout the previous 9 chapters, we have explored the long history of design education. We began before schools existed, examining how knowledge was transmitted through observation, participation, and shared experience. We moved through workshops, drawings, books, academies, studios, and educational movements that transformed how future designers learn. We explored how architecture became a discipline, how educational institutions emerged, and how design education expanded into a global enterprise. Across the season, one theme has remained constant. The changing needs of society have always shaped design education. Yet this observation raises an important question. If every era educates designers for the challenges it faces, what challenges define our own time? More specifically, what kind of designer are we teaching today? At first glance, this question may appear straightforward. Educational institutions often describe learning outcomes, professional competencies, technical skills, and disciplinary knowledge. Students are expected to develop expertise in communication, representation, research, critical thinking, and design practice. These objectives remain important. Yet the world facing contemporary designers is changing at a pace that previous generations could scarcely have imagined. Technological transformation has altered how designers work. Environmental crises have changed how designers think about responsibility. Globalization has expanded the cultural context within which design operates. Digital networks have transformed communication. Artificial intelligence has begun reshaping relationships between creativity, knowledge, and production. In such circumstances, design education faces a challenge extending beyond technical preparation alone. The question is no longer how to teach design. It is how to prepare designers for uncertainty. Throughout much of history, professional education often focused on transmitting established knowledge. Students learned proven techniques, recognized methods, and accepted practices. While innovation certainly occurred, educational systems frequently assumed a degree of continuity between present conditions and future professional life. Today, that assumption has become increasingly difficult to maintain. Many future challenges remain unpredictable. Technologies continue evolving, environmental conditions continue changing, social expectations continue shifting, new forms of work emerge while others disappear. Designers therefore require more than specialized knowledge. They require adaptability. This shift has significant implications for education. Knowledge remains important, but the ability to learn may be even more important. Students must develop capacities that extend beyond specific software platforms, technical procedures, or professional conventions. They need to understand how to ask questions, evaluate information, engage critically with emerging technologies, and respond thoughtfully to unfamiliar situations. One example can be found in artificial intelligence. Recent technological developments have generated excitement, uncertainty, and debate across many disciplines. AI systems increasingly assist with visualization, research, communication, analysis, and creative production. Some observers view these technologies as threats, others see them as opportunities. Most likely, they represent both. For design education, the challenge is not simply whether students should use artificial intelligence. The deeper question concerns how designers should think about it. Technologies influence decisions, shape workflows, and affect relationships between people and knowledge. Future designers will need not only technical competence but also critical awareness. They must understand both what technologies can do and what they should do. Environmental responsibility presents another defining challenge. Throughout previous seasons of this podcast, we have discussed climate, vernacular knowledge, environmental adaptation, and sustainability. These themes are no longer peripheral concerns. They increasingly sit at the center of design practice. Designers influence material consumption, energy use, spatial behavior, and long-term environmental impact. Consequently, contemporary design education cannot focus solely on creating attractive or efficient solutions. It must also encourage ethical reflection. Students need opportunities to consider the consequences of design decisions, both immediate and long-term. The designer is not merely a problem solver. The designer is also a participant in shaping future conditions. This ethical dimension extends beyond environmental issues alone. Questions concerning accessibility, inclusion, equity, cultural heritage, social well-being, and technological responsibility increasingly influence design practice. Future designers must navigate situations involving competing values and complex consequences. Educational systems, therefore, face the task of cultivating judgment as well as expertise. In many respects, this challenge brings us back to themes encountered earlier in the season. The workshop taught responsibility through practice. The academy organized knowledge. The studio cultivated reflection and critique. The Bauhaus encouraged experimentation. Global education expanded cultural awareness. Each stage contributed something valuable to the development of future practitioners. The designer we are teaching today may therefore require all of these traditions simultaneously. Technical competence remains important. Creative exploration remains important. Historical awareness remains important. Cultural sensitivity remains important. Critical thinking remains important. Yet none of these qualities alone is sufficient. The future designer must be able to connect them. This observation also reminds us that education is never solely about professional preparation. Design education shapes ways of seeing the world. It influences how individuals interpret problems, evaluate possibilities, and imagine alternatives. Every educational system implicitly communicates assumptions about what matters and what responsibilities designers should accept. For this reason, design education always involves questions of values. What kind of built environment do we wish to create? What forms of life should design support? How should technology serve society? What responsibilities accompany creativity? These questions cannot be answered through technical expertise alone. They require reflection, dialogue, and judgment. Perhaps this is why the history of design education remains so relevant. Throughout the season, we have seen that educational systems constantly evolve. New technologies appear, new institutions emerge, new teaching methods are being developed, yet the fundamental purpose of education remains remarkably consistent. Every generation attempts to prepare the next for a future it cannot fully predict. The methods change, the responsibility remains. Throughout this season, we have moved from informal learning to global education, from apprenticeship to artificial intelligence, and from workshops to digital networks. Yet beneath these transformations lies a surprisingly simple idea. Design education is ultimately concerned with continuity. It represents society's effort to transfer knowledge, experience, values, and possibilities from one generation to the next. Teaching design is therefore not simply about producing designers. It is about shaping the future conditions under which people will live, work, interact, and imagine. Every lesson, critique, conversation, drawing, model, and project contributes in some small way to that process. The history of design education is, in many respects, a history of hope. Each generation teaches because it believes knowledge matters. Each generation shares experience because it believes the future can be improved. Each generation educates because it trusts that those who follow may build upon what came before. Throughout this season, we have explored how designers have been taught across centuries. We have examined the environments, institutions, tools, and ideas that shaped architectural education. Yet perhaps the most important lesson is that education itself remains unfinished. Every generation inherits educational traditions and simultaneously reshapes them. The story continues. Because the future continues. This concludes Chapter 10 of Teaching the designer we are teaching. And this is the end of the Hodja on architecture. 100 episodes. 10 seasons. Thanks for being part of this journey. And see you in the next podcast channel, The Hodja on Everything.